Hi everyone! If you would like to make a vegetarian pizza that's gluten-free, wheat-free, and GMO-free, you definitely want to keep watching. This is a dish that your children and yourself are going to enjoy making and eating, I guarantee you, more than once a week. So if you want to learn how, then keep on watching. So for this vegetarian pizza, we're going to need some brown rice flour, or you can use white rice flour. And this is the Bob's Red Mill flour. You'll find this in your grocery store in the Asian section. We're going to need some pure baking soda, some yeast, and a pack of sugar. So for this recipe, we're going to need a measuring cup, and this is 1 cup, a mixing bowl, and I'm going to be using, this is rice flour, and I've got some white and some brown rice flour, and this is Bob's Red Mill whole grain brown rice flour, and this is stone ground. What I've done, I've actually mixed the two in just one of these Pyrex bowls, and it's all mixed in together. That way you can use both. You can use just the white if you want for this recipe, but I like to use both mixed together. In a measuring cup, I've added 1 cup of warm water, and I'm going to use one of these scoops, and this is 1 tablespoon little scoop, and I'm also going to be using some active dry yeast. You can find this at any grocery store in your baking section aisle, and I'm going to measure 1 tablespoon. I'm going to pour that in this cup of water. What I'm going to do is add a little packet of sugar. This will also help to activate the yeast a lot faster. You can also use a teaspoon of honey if you wish, and then what you're going to do is just mix the yeast with the sugar and water, and you're going to let this sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. And now I'm going to mix my dry ingredients. So I'm going to go ahead and scoop up about 4 cups of rice flour and just place them in my mixing bowl. And this will make about 2 small size pizzas. So you're going to cut the dough in half, and that's going to make you 2 pizzas. Next, I'm going to add some sea salt, and you want to add just 1 teaspoon, no more than that. You don't want to add too much. Just 1 teaspoon should be enough. And also, I'm going to be using a teaspoon of baking soda. Now I'm going to mix the dry ingredients just to make sure that the salt and the baking soda is thoroughly incorporated into the mix here. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my yeast in the water, and as you can see, look at that nice froth that it has created. But before you add that in there, grab your little tablespoon, and I'm going to add a tablespoon of sunflower oil. The reason that I love to use sunflower oil when I cook with everything in my house is that it's 100% cholesterol free, GMO free, and also 0 trans fat. So I'm going to go ahead and pour 1 tablespoon into the water mix and just stir it around, and then we're going to pour that into the flour. So you might need to add a little bit more water just to make sure that all of the rice flour is nicely incorporated. Just mix it together. And at this point, this is where your hand is going to get a little bit messy. And you have to remember that rice flour doesn't come together the same way that whole wheat flour will come together. It will tend to break apart a little bit, but once you mold it together, it should stay together really, really nicely. And I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to add a little bit more water. Just to pick up the parts on the bottom here. It's coming along really nicely. And now I'm going to go ahead and scoop out the rest. And I might need to add a little bit more flour just so that it will stick together nicely. And you can just use your bowl. You don't have to take the dough out. This way it's a lot less mess for you to clean up later. And because this flour doesn't behave the same way as whole wheat, it's much easier to control it here in the bowl rather than putting it on your board. So as you can see, it's coming together really, really nicely. Just kind of knead it a little bit. Okay, so it's coming together really nicely. Now what I'm going to do is take some of that sunflower oil and I'm going to put some in my hands just so the dough doesn't stick to my hands. I'm going to pick up the ball and this is what you have. And you can't really knead it too much because this is what I'm talking about. It breaks apart like this. This is how whole rice flour reacts. So I'm just going to form a ball, just like so. Just to make it nice and compact like this. And I'm going to use the same bowl and I'm just going to place it at the bottom like that. And you're going to let this rise for 1 hour. That's it. I'm going to use some saran wrap and just place it on top of the bowl, and this will trap the heat inside the bowl and it will help the rice flour dough to rise a lot faster. So let it sit on your counter or somewhere in a warm place for 1 hour, and we're going to come back after an hour and have a look. Now I'm going to prepare the toppings for our pizza, and for this I'm going to be using some cherry tomatoes. I find these are the best because they have such a wonderful sweet flavor. They taste so much better than regular tomatoes, which taste like rubber here in America or Canada. They have no taste. Unless you have your own garden and you can grow your own tomatoes to have that wonderful flavor, cherry tomatoes are the best to use for this recipe. I'm going to use half an onion and I'm going to slice it thinly. I'm also going to be using, you can use some sliced mozzarella like that, and this is already pre-sliced, but for this recipe I'm going to use some shredded cheese. And so here I've got my 3 toppings, our little baby cherry tomatoes, the sliced onion, and our shredded mozzarella cheese. For the pizza sauce, I'm going to be using this basil pesto sauce. You can use tomato sauce if you would like, but I love using the basil pesto. It is absolutely one of my favorite pesto sauces to use ever. And you can find this at Costco, and I don't remember how much it was, but it is really, really awesome sauce to use on your vegetarian pizza. So it's been about an hour and this is what our dough will look like, and you can see it has risen a little bit. It won't rise as much as regular whole wheat dough will rise. And it will get little cracks like this on top of the surface, which is fine. This is what rice flour will really act like. Okay, so I'm going to cut the dough in half, and this will make 2 small size pizzas. I put a little bit of the sunflower oil in my palms just so the dough doesn't stick. I'm just going to pick it up, and don't worry if it breaks apart. This is completely normal for this type of dough. So we've got a little ball like this, and I'm going to use a non-stick pan, and I'm going to put a little bit of oil here, and then I will place my dough in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press it into shape. So I'm going to use a little bit of a saran wrap just to help me push it nice and smoothly. And you want to push it all the way so it can fit your pan. If you have a round pan, you can put this in a round pan, rectangular pan, square pan, whatever kind of pan you have. Just want to kind of gently push it into place like that. With the edge of a spoon, what you're going to do is kind of gently tap it along the sides just to make the sides of the crust nice and even, so that when it cooks, it doesn't stick to the sides of the pan. It just gives it a nicer look as well. Now I'm going to add my pesto sauce. And you want to make sure you spread it nice and even all over the surface of the dough, including the edges, because this rice flour dough will tend to dry a little more than traditional whole wheat dough will. So you want to make sure that you coat with a pesto sauce or a tomato sauce, whatever sauce that you choose to use for this recipe. You want to make sure it's nice and coated all over the surface. Preheat your oven to 350, and you're going to place this in the oven for 10 minutes. No more, no less. 10 minutes. After the 10 minutes, you're going to take your pizza out, and as you can see, the sauce has seeped into the dough really, really nicely. So now we're going to garnish it with our shredded cheese, our onion, and the Now that we've got the rest of the toppings on our pizza, we're going to stick it back into the oven for an additional 15 minutes. Once your 15 minutes are up, this is what your vegetarian pizza will look like. And this is whole wheat free, gluten free, and also GMO free. So now I'm going to use a pizza cutter, and I'm just going to cut this into little squares, and there you guys have it. It is I really wish that we had smell-o-vision and taste-o-vision, because you guys have never tasted pizza this good. Now it will crumble up a little bit. This is the natural texture of rice flour dough, so don't get scared. This is what it's going to look like. It reminds me a little bit of muffin mix once you cook it. But it is so delicious. It melts in your mouth. I urge you all to give this recipe a try, and if any of you do try it out, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next tutorial.